Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and I'm going to be looking at a song that was overwhelmingly requested of me. A little while ago I looked at the song Black Holes by The Warning live at the Pepsi Centre, and you know, it was an incredibly beautiful, incredibly moving piece of music performed by Pau, the drummer of The Warning, and it was just her, piano, maybe a little bit of background instrumentation, and it was beautiful. It was a very powerful piece of music. You know, talking about, you know, there was elements in it like, you know, saying even black holes don't want me. So it's like even the most powerful force in the world is rejecting me. It's about people feeling unwanted and rejected and stuff like that. So when I did that video, you know, it was, like I said, incredibly beautiful, incredibly moving. And in the comment section of that video, I got overwhelmingly told that I need to look at the song that immediately followed it. And that's a song called Breathe. I was told specifically that I need to have the captions on. The way I do my videos, you won't be able to see any of the captions in the video that's displayed on screen, but rest assured I will be seeing everything that is said throughout the video. But yeah, a lot of people told me, you know, if you thought Black Holes was powerful, emotional, and, you know, brutal in the sense of the amount of emotion it had in it, just wait until you hear Breathe. So I have been forewarned that this is quite a powerful and emotional piece of music. A couple of people did mention the fact that it's a song that she said she would never perform live, but she decided to on this occasion. Why, I don't know. So yeah, I'm curious to see what this is going to be like. Now, I've covered The Warning a considerable amount of times by now. I think I've looked at them maybe 5 times, I think, maybe, give or take, and I've enjoyed every single piece of music I've heard by them. You know, they're all very, very talented musicians. Pau certainly seems to be an incredibly multi-talented musician. You know, she plays the drums, she plays the piano, and she can sing. She is an incredibly good musician. But, you know, that's not to detract from the other two either. You know, all of them are very, very good. All of them have got incredible, powerful voices. So, you know, I'm curious to see what this song's going to be like, because, you know, I have been warned it is an incredibly emotional song, and, you know, if I thought Black Holes was devastating, wait till I hear this one. So, you know, out of sheer curiosity and the fact that so many people told me that I needed to hear this song, that's what we're going to do today. So, we'll jump into this and see what we've got. But before we do that, if you could just take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't already, it would really, really mean the world to me. You know, I've been doing this for close to 7 years now, and not even 3% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed, which is a little bit disheartening, you know, because I like to think I do something a little bit different than most other channels. But, you know, if you could like and subscribe, you know, it would mean the world to me. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes a fraction of a second, but it does make the biggest difference to me and the channel. Anyway, let's jump into this and see what we've got. So this is Breathe by The Warning, or by Pau of The Warning.
Bueno, esa siguiente canción yo había dicho que nunca la iba a tocar en vivo, porque es una canción muy personal. Pero viéndolos todos aquí reunidos, es increíble pensar que hay 8,000 personas ahorita aquí que nos vinieron a ver a nosotras. Y honestamente estoy medio enferma, mi voz no está súper bien, pero les quiero cantar esta canción. The water's getting weak. No, la necesito cantar, oigan. I thought it learned to keep me warm, but it's reaching down my throat and it's freezing all my bones. still. I try to reach over the endless waves. Can't call for help, so I'll just call my name. But not even I can hear. I'll just disappear without a trace. Is it so wrong to want to be alright? Perfect in pain, it's the same all the time. I try my very best to stay afloat, but there's something down there that just wants me close. And I beg myself to breathe, but there's nothing within reach now. Is it so wrong to want to be alright? Perfect in vain, it's the same all the time. Muchas gracias. Los quiero muchísimo.
Wow. Wow. That's a powerful piece of music, that is, and hearing her sob and cry at the end, it's heartbreaking, you know, because you can tell by the performance of that piece of music that that song means a lot to her. And it sounds like like I said, it sounds very, very personal to her. So it sounds like this is possibly written, or most likely written, from a personal experience. And it sounds like a moment in time when she was struggling with whether it be anxiety or something like that, you know, and she felt that she was drowning, essentially, and, you know, possibly couldn't think or find a way out of the situation that she was in. You know, she felt hopeless at the time. Now, whilst I am learning to speak Spanish, and I did understand some of what she said at the beginning, and what she actually said was, this next song I said I would never play live because it's a song that is very personal to me. But seeing all of you here gathered together, I think it's incredible to see that there are 88,000 people here right now who have just come to see us. And honestly, I'm half sick and my voice is not very good, but I want to sing this for you. So she was singing whilst sick, saying her voice isn't very good at the moment, and she managed to belt out a tune like that. And her vocal range within that song was so impressive, you know, because she is belting out like the chorus essentially of that song. But then there are some parts where her voice goes really quite low, and I never expected a voice that low to come out of that girl. You know, I'm not saying, you know, obviously women can't sing, you know, I'm not saying women can't sing that deeply, but, you know, she looks like such a small, petite, cute little lass, and then her voice drops quite like that. It's, you know, it's like I didn't expect that sound to come out of her. But yeah, I mean, if that's how she performs when she's sick, what the hell does she sound like in full health? Because that is an amazing performance, and it was beautiful, it was emotional, it was touching. And I've mentioned this countless times by now, is that putting emotion into a song really makes a difference, because it doesn't matter what language the song is performed in. If you put the emotional weight into a piece of music, even if you don't understand the language that it's performed in, you will still bring across your message. You know, and yes, she sang this in English, but the emotional weight in that piece of music says everything. And it's mightily impressive. And like I said, obviously she found it quite overwhelming, because even before the end of the song, you could hear her sort of breathing hard and trying to stifle back sobs before there was that huge cheer from the crowd, and she just let herself go and actually let out a few sobs and sniffs and decided to try and fix her mascara. You know, so this song does have a lot of emotional weight in general, but especially for her. And I mean, she started singing the song, and the crowd started singing as well, and she turned around and goes, "Oh, I don't even need to sing this song, or a song I don't even have to sing, because, you know, the crowd knows it so well, they were going to sing it to her anyway." But they let her do it. And it goes, "The water's getting way too cold. I thought it had learned to keep me warm, but it's reaching down my throat, and it's freezing all my bones still. I try to reach over the endless waves, can't call for help, so I'll just call my name. But not even I can hear, I'll just disappear without a trace." I mean, that's just 8 lines, very short lines, very simply written, but it carries so much weight. Because within those 8 lines, there is the entire embodiment of helplessness. You know, there's that symbolism that she feels like she's drowning. You know, the water's getting way too cold. So, you know, she felt like she's been drowning a long time. I thought it had learned to keep me warm. So, again, you know, she's been in the water for... She felt like she's drowning for quite some time. You know, she would have thought by now, you know, the water would be so used to her that it would try and keep her warm instead of the way it is now. But it's reaching down my throat, and it's I cannot speak today, and it's freezing all my bones. So, you know, she feels like she's drowning. So she's in this situation of helplessness. She feels like she's drowning, but it's a situation she's found herself in regularly. You know, that line, "I thought it had learned to keep me warm," it suggests that she's been in this situation many, many times, and it's become such a common occurrence that she would have thought that the environment would have adapted to her by now, because it's so used to her being there that, you know, it'd be like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? Come on in, let's keep you nice and warm." But, you know, every single time she goes to this place of anxiety, sadness, depression, whatever it might be, you know, it's like starting all over again. You know, it's the same fresh hell, essentially. The same fresh hell. So it's the same thing, but it starts all over again, if that makes sense. I try to reach over the endless waves. So, you know, I'm trying to essentially claw my way out of this drowning situation I'm in, but obviously there's nothing within reach. You know, can't call for help, so I'll just call my name. So, you know, can't call for help, you know, because drowning, or, you know, there's no one around. So I'll just call my name. So essentially, it's almost like she's only finding comfort within herself, because she can't call for anybody else. She feels so alone that the only person she's got to talk to is herself. And it says that, but not even I can hear. I'll just disappear without a trace. So while she's talking to herself, you know, she's not listening to herself. You know, so it could be like she's trying to give herself a pep talk, like, "Sort yourself out, woman. You need to get out of this situation." But she's not listening to herself. You know, or it's not maybe that she's not listening to herself. It's all very well telling yourself these things, but actually managing to do it is a whole other thing. And this is something I've mentioned before about like mental illnesses and things like that, or when you find yourself in bad situations, you find yourself in a depression or an anxiety, high anxiety situation, or you find yourself in an abusive situation, and it's a bad place to be. You need to get out of it, but it is just simply not that easy. There's something ineffable, is that the word I'm looking for, about it? You can't explain it. If you've never been in that situation, you wouldn't be able to understand it. And if you have been in that situation, you know what it is, but you can't explain it. There's this whole element to it. It seems like it is completely nonsensical. But unless you've been in that situation, you wouldn't understand what it's like. So, yeah, you're in a bad situation, and you should do something about it, but you just simply can't. It's a hard situation to explain, like I said. And I'll just disappear without a trace, so, I might as well just let this whole thing consume me and just disappear. And by the sounds of it, it sounds like she thinks no one cares. Is it so wrong to want to be alright, perfect in pain, it's the same all the time? And again, that's... every line in this song is exquisite. It's just so perfectly crafted to say exactly what it needs to say, but in the simplest way, if that makes sense. I'm not saying, it's very simple writing, it's not very clever, but it is. It's very, very clever. And you don't need to use really, really fancy words to say what you need to say. Is it so wrong to want to be alright? No, it's not wrong to want to be alright. It's okay to not be okay, if that makes sense. You shouldn't feel ashamed of having, like, mental health problems. You shouldn't be ashamed of having depression or anxiety. It's okay. You shouldn't feel ashamed of this. You shouldn't be made to feel bad for the fact that you're struggling. And it's okay to want to be alright. It's okay to want help. It's okay to ask for help. But it's like, in this situation, is it so wrong to want to be alright? It sounds like I want to be alright, but my brain, my body, whatever it might be, won't let me be okay. It's like my mind is rebelling against the idea of being okay. It's like my mind itself wants to revel in misery, and it's like, why are you doing this to me? It's the same all the time, and this is something I can relate to. I'm sure many people can relate to this. There's that situation you find yourself in, a manic episode, a depressive episode, an anxiety episode, and you want to be okay, you want to climb out of it, you don't want to feel like this anymore, and it's the same thing every single time, every single day. You find yourself in these situations and you just want it to stop, and as the song suggested in the earlier lines, you feel like you're drowning, you're struggling to keep afloat. You want to go out into the world with a positive attitude, you want to be happy, but there's just something going on within your brain that is preventing that from happening, and it's like, as much as you want it, you just can't achieve it. And excuse me, there are times when you're in those situations, you feel completely alone. There might be millions of people around you, millions, maybe not millions, there might be like dozens, hundreds of people around you who want to help you, who are your friend, who care about you. But when you're in that situation, you feel so very alone. You might have people that send you messages saying, if you need help, talk to me. But in that very instant, when you're feeling like that, you feel so very alone. And whilst there are people out there that want to help you, and I'm going to speak from personal experience here, whilst people may have said to you, if you need help, talk to me, And you get into one of these like depressive or anxiety-ridden situations, you sit there and think to yourself, but I don't want to spread my misery to someone else. So you don't end up reaching out to someone when you really, really need to. And I do this all the time. I am one of the worst people for that. I'll find myself in a situation where I'm really, really struggling, when I'm in a very, very bad place. And, there are people who have said, if you need to talk to me. But I won't reach out to them because I know how bad I feel, and I don't want to inflict that on someone else. And, they're possibly struggling with their own things. I don't want to pile on top of that. But you really, really should, because I am such a hypocrite, because when I see a friend is struggling, I will turn to them and say, look, talk to me. And I will pester them until they talk to me. I will make them do the same thing that I refuse to do. It's a bad way to be, but and like she's saying, it's the same all the time. So no matter how many times she's been through this, no matter how many times people say talk to me, or how many times people say they want to help me and to talk to them if they're in that situation, she repeats the same cycle of going, I can't, I try my very best to stay afloat, but there's something down there that just wants me close, and I beg myself to breathe, but there's nothing within reach now. Is it so wrong to want to be alright, perfect in pain, it's the same all the time? And then there's some vocalizations at the end. So I try my very best to stay afloat. So again, she knows she's in a bad situation. She feels like she's drowning, but she's trying her very best to stay positive, to stay happy, to get herself out of this sort of funk, as it were. And she's saying, I'm trying my very best, but there's something down there that wants to be close. So, while she's trying her very best to be positive, to be happy, or what have you, there is something there that just keeps trying to pull her back down. That there's that thing in the back of her mind, no matter how happy she's being, there's this voice in the back of her mind going, but are you really? And it's that encroaching black fog trying to envelop the mind. Just her brain is essentially being a traitor to her. And I've said this a couple of times about my own mental problems. It's like the two sides of my brain are constantly arguing with each other. It's like one side is going, look, we want to be happy, we want to be joyful, we want to have fun, and the other side's going, fuck you, you're not allowed to. And it's like they're constantly at war with each other. And that's kind of what she's saying here. She's trying so hard to be happy and positive, but there's that other part that's like going, no, you're going to be sad and miserable, and you're going to fucking like it. It's beautifully worded. The craftsmanship of this song, like I said, the lines themselves are so simply written, but they mean everything, and they portray everything that she's trying to say in such powerful terms. I beg myself to breathe. I'm trying hard to stay afloat. I'm trying hard to stay alive, essentially. But there's nothing within reach now. Again, that feeling of hopelessness, that, essentially feeling like you're right in the middle of the ocean. There's nothing for you to grab hold of. You're just sitting there, you're floating there, floundering. And essentially, eventually, you're going to run out of energy and just let go and just sink and eventually drown. And, that chorus, is it so wrong to want to be alright? That sort of thing. So, it's an incredibly powerful and moving piece of music. And, like I said, given her emotional response at just performing the song, there's obviously more of a story behind this. This sounds like she's been through something that she really struggled with. It could be anxiety, it could be depression, I don't know, but she's been through a really hard time, and she's really struggled with it. And she said she didn't want to perform this live, because I'm guessing it's such a deeply personal piece of music to her, and given her response at the end of the song, she started crying and essentially ran off stage, because obviously that hit her right in the heart. This really impacted her very, very hard, and she needed to get off stage, have a moment to herself, get herself sorted, and get herself ready to carry on. And there are several other bands, that they'll write a piece of music that is deeply personal to them, and they just won't perform it live because it is such a personal song, and they might struggle getting through it. It's like seeing Corey Taylor perform Snuff after Paul Gray died. He had a lot of trouble getting through that piece of music, and you could tell the agony on his face and in his voice when he was performing that song live. He was struggling. There are many other bands that do it as well. I mean, it's like when Elton John wrote the alternative version for Candle in the Wind when Princess Diana died. He wrote the song, he performed it, and then said, I'm never performing that song live ever again, because it's got such a deep, intense personal feeling and meaning to it. So, that's the same with this song. She said she never wanted to perform it live, but she did, because of the overwhelming presence of the crowd, the overwhelming response from them, and the fact that she probably felt so comfortable and happy and proud, that all these people turned up to see her and her sisters perform. It's like, oh my God, I feel such appreciation. I'm going to do this one thing for you. I'm going to perform this special song just for you. So yeah, there's definitely something deeper within the song that affects Powell directly and personally. What that is, I don't know, but it's a beautifully written song, beautifully performed song. So powerful, so emotional, absolutely stunning, and it's heartbreaking. Because obviously she struggled and she had a lot of trouble with it, and her emotional response at the end of that song speaks volumes as to how much she struggled and suffered at the time that she wrote this song. So there is a lot of weight behind this, and it's beautiful. The song itself, not the fact that she suffered. That's not beautiful at all. That's really unfortunate, because she seems like such a sweet kid. So yeah, an amazing piece of music, and I can see why so many people wanted me to have a look at it. It is just an outstanding piece of music. And again, every time I look at the warning, I'm not surprised, but I'm never disappointed, because they, there's a song or two there that I've heard that I've been like, it's not as good as that one, but it's still bloody brilliant. So, they've never disappointed. Outstanding. But I don't know what else I can say on that, so I'm going to leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like or a subscribe if you haven't already. It would really, really mean the world to me, because I've been doing this for about 7 years at this point, and not even 3% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed, which is a little disheartening, because I like to think I do something a bit different than most other reactors. Most reaction channels will look at a piece of music and go, yeah, I liked it, no I didn't, and that's about all you're going to get. I like to actually react to the song. I like to talk about the lyrics, the meanings, the themes, and the morals within the song itself. And no other reaction channel does that. Well, there might be one or two maybe, but I've not come across any. Occasionally you'll get people like Elizabeth over at the Charismatic Voice. She'll explore certain elements of the song, but she'll never actually, there's no discussion about what the whole song means. And that's why I do what I do, because I want to understand the song. What does the song mean to me? What does the song mean to you? I want to have that conversation, because, what a song means to one person might mean something completely different to somebody else. And I want to have that conversation, which is why I do what I do. So if you could like and subscribe, it would really, really mean the world to me. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes a fraction of a second, but it does make the biggest difference to me and the channel. But anyway, that's about all I've got for you for this video. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.
Is it so wrong to want to? be alright. say.